Story 1. A lie detector isn't reliable. I'm stunned by the number of people who think it is. I see it so often in news stories about crimes. People in the comments section say, just make him take a polygraph, then we'll know for sure. If anyone's reading this, don't ever agree to take a polygraph examination if you're suspected of involvement in a crime. There's a good chance it will produce a false negative or positive, and even though the results are not admissible in court in many places, it may bias the police, the press, and your friends and family against you. If the police push you to submit to a polygraph examination, it's because they use it as an interrogation tool. Story 2. Psychological addiction to marijuana is a real thing. To the you can be psychologically addicted to anything crowd, yes, you can treat your dopamine receptors as a gumball machine with various different activities. But these are different to imbibing a foreign substance which has the side effect of releasing dopamine. The point is many people deny that it's addictive, but can't go an hour without being high. I'm sure you all have seen burnouts. Story 3. You can love someone else without loving yourself first. There's plenty of parents that hate themselves and love their kids. Not recommending it, but it is a stupid thing to deny. Story 4. You don't know how to fight unless you've been trained or have experience in fighting. Most people imagine themselves kicking ass only to have reality smash them in the nose. A lot of people even injure themselves just trying to throw punches. My kids swore they could fight off a knife attack. So my husband got a marker and had our kid try to separately fight each of us off them. They failed horribly, but they now know it'd be near impossible to defend themselves in a knife fight. Knife fights are scary. When you enter a fight with a knife, you need to know that you are going to get cut. Not may get cut, going to get cut. A lot. The best fighters, knife or not, know they are going to feel pain. They accept that as part of what they are doing. MMA, military, police, security, they all know that they are going to get hurt badly when entering a fight. Some rando off the street thinks they can get away without a scratch, but a real fighter knows they are going to the hospital after it's all said and done. That's what makes those people dangerous. Story 5. Being 35 to 50 wasn't considered elderly back in the day. It was common for people to live into their 70s and 80s. The reason we get average lifespan data with such low numbers is because so many babies died, skewing the average values downward. Story 6. The Monty Hall problem. Every time it's described in a post, such as a TIL or on a Facebook post, a large number of people vehemently insist that switching doors could possibly result in an increased chance of winning. Even after showing the results of simulations, providing mathematical proofs, or giving examples using more doors, the cognitive dissonance prevails. Story 7. Autism diagnoses. Myself and lots of autistic people I know are often told by people who seem to base their entire knowledge of autism off the movie Rain Man are like, but you don't seem autistic. Research on autism has changed a lot since the 80s, but public perception has changed very little. Story 8. Pretty privilege. How facially attractive people get guaranteed a lot of predetermined social, financial, and romantic success at birth. My wife is a very attractive Latina, and she will be the first to tell you that life would have been much more difficult for her in the South if she had not been so attractive. She has seen plenty of racism and discrimination toward her siblings and other family members, but has very rarely been the target of racism herself. She'll also be the first to tell you that being attractive gets you opportunities and preferential treatment that most people would not receive. Story 9. The CIA trafficked cocaine into the U.S. in the 1970s and 1980s to fund Central American freedom fighters, stop communism, and protect the American way of life. Once people realized the government was responsible for the drug epidemic that destroyed our inner cities for decades, it's not that hard to start questioning other decisions they have made. Story 10. That having children is not for everyone. That it's not all sunshine and the meaning of life, and that millions of people regret being parents. This is true, and I think everyone on both sides of this needs to accept that becoming a parent means absolutely committing yourself to the cause. You can't just give up when it gets too hard. Your kids are now your entire world. If you're not ready to commit to that, then you're not ready to be a parent. Too many of my relatives saw having multiple kids as a fun thing to do when they were wholly unprepared for the situation. And now, their kids and those kids' grandparents, if present, have to deal with the consequences. It's also a lot harder to have kids now than it was 25 years ago when I was born. I owe my entire life to the benefit system that supported my single mother and her 4 children, which was slowly dismantled as I became older, to the point that my mother started leeching from her kids because she could no longer support herself. Now I'm earning more than she ever has, but I can't even afford to rent a flat. Story 11. That they are good humans because they have good thoughts. You have to do good to be a good person. The world is full of people complaining, but we are in need of people willing to sacrifice and not make it about themselves. Story 12. Flushable wipes should not actually be flushed. You should not use pH balancing soap to wash your vagina. You should not use this specific soap on any part of your genitals. This was about specific soap advertising to balance your vaginal pH and make your vagina smell like flowers. If you don't have a vagina, this doesn't even apply to you in the first place. Read with your eyeballs, people, for f***'s sake. If you have a penis, please wash your genitals with soap and water. If you have a vagina, wash the vulva with warm water and a mild soap, but steer clear of Vagisil or any soap that claims to balance your pH and or make your vagina smell like fruits or whatever. Story 13. The opened containers of baking powder and baking soda lose their efficiency in baking over time. Make sure to replace them every 6 months or so to ensure your baked goods cook properly. Story 14. That body detox is like 100% bullshit. Yeah, that body detox is like 100% bullshit. Yeah, you can reword the phrase and say something similar that may be similar, like being aware of what you are intaking, and it may make yourself feel better, because it might just be the fact that the food you are eating may be bad for you, and so the new food you are eating takes less energy to digest. Do not quote me, I am not a medical professional. The phrase itself, detox, is usually used when you want to clear your system of impurities and harmful substances. Do you know why your body detoxes? Because you have a liver and kidneys. The body does it for you, and the whole new thing of alkaline water is complete bullshit. Because stomach acid has a pH of, I think, 1 to 2. You drinking alkaline water doesn't do shit, because if you eat a tomato, it doesn't change it. If you have something that is naturally alkaline, it doesn't do anything because of the stomach acid being so acidic. If you really think about it, the blood's pH is 7.35 to 7.45, and if it even slightly goes out of that range, it is detrimental to the body, and you will become very ill. So if you listen to all of these people on social media, just know it's complete BS. It would be like putting a hole in a mask so you can breathe better. It doesn't do anything better for your body, because the reason for the mask is not to make you sick. The mask is the kidneys and liver, and the hole is the alkaline water. Basically, it does nothing. Story 15. Skin cancer from not wearing sunblock. It absolutely blows my mind when grown adults brag about not wearing sunscreen. Like, it's a real point of pride for them. Enjoy your early wrinkles and spots. Story 16. Most sides tend to have a lot of deniers, unfortunately. The American side, the Holocaust, Stalin, etc. I'm omitting the Great Leap Forward as a side because I don't know enough about it or intentional law to know if it qualifies. But it was definitely the world's biggest bloodbath. Story 17. The dangers of texting and driving. I call my friends out all of the time to not do so, and the response is always, "It's fine. I'm really good at multitasking." Well, Sarah, if you're that f***ing good at it, why have we been sitting at this green light for 5 minutes? Literally 90% of people I see driving have a device in hand. It's so f***ing selfish and reckless. Story 18. That most people would do some pretty awful things for money if presented the opportunity. People would like to believe that they have strong morals, but if presented with a button that would kill 10 random people in the world in exchange for $1 million, many would press it. I would guess at least half of the population would, and many would press it multiple times. But not many people would actually admit that they would press it if given the opportunity to. Maybe I'm just too cynical, and not many would press it. But this hypothetical situation is something I think about a lot. When I divorced my husband, he was an utter shock. His father was wealthy. Most of the things he did to me was at his father's suggestion. Money messes with people. He was his father's lapdog. As much as he wanted his freedom and his own life, he was a slave to his father's purse strings. Money his father had stolen through a Ponzi scheme. It was blood money in my mind. His father used him, and he couldn't even see it, because acknowledging it would ruin the father-son bond he wanted so badly. I couldn't stand to watch it and refused to live my life under his father's thumb and watch my marriage disintegrate, all for the promise of that money. It was corrosive. My ex literally couldn't understand how I could walk away, and also hated me for being able to so easily. Story 19. Conspiracies. Just because conspiracy theorists are often wrong doesn't mean that nobody ever conspires. Does anybody remember the price-fixing episode of This American Life? It's all about a bunch of corporate executives that actively colluded against the American consumer to keep their packaged goods from lowering in price. It's technically a conspiracy that was proven in a court of law, but do you honestly believe that was the only price-fixing scam in the history of our country? No way in hell. Story 20. There's nothing scientifically impossible about the bumblebee being able to fly. It doesn't break the laws of physics. If it was impossible, it simply wouldn't fly, unless everyone just believes for some reason that the bumblebee is the one magical insect. Story 21. Based on some disturbing podcasts and articles I've been hearing, women's health issues, particularly their pain. Apparently, most doctors of both sexes are quick to dismiss and downplay our pain rather than, treating it. Story 22. The intelligence of other species. They might not be intelligent in the ways that humans are, but they can be intelligent in different ways, and even surpass us in different ways. We measure everything by what we know and can do. Story 23. Everyone has psychopathic narcissistic traits. Not talking about Bundy level. If you think about it, jobs, friendships, school, or even out in public, we tell people what they want to hear. Sometimes we have to be nice to people regardless of situations. We use our friends all the time, whether it's money or simply just having someone by your side. It's not the benefits for them, but it's for you. People complain that narcissism is overused, when it's literally on a scale, not a yes-no trait. It is rare that people actually name narcissistic personality disorder, which would be the malignant trait that most people think of, and is a very specific set of traits to qualify for. The Greek mythological character Narcissus is the basis for the term narcissism, and he was just someone who fell in love with his own reflection. I would say that what you're talking about above is whether or not altruism is real or selfish, which is a popular debate in psychology. When we give someone money, we are doing it selflessly to help them, or are we doing it to feel good about ourselves? It's an interesting topic. Story 24. Most rehab, hospice, or boot camp and reform is filled with abuse going on since its existence. That type of abuse and crime you see on international news or third world countries is happening in the States, and especially in the burbs. Story 25. Eating in a caloric deficit is 100% the only way to lose weight. Aside from physically chopping weight off your body, people will argue till they're blue in the face that you don't need to eat in a deficit to lose weight. But that is just not true. Ever. Story 26. That Mother Teresa was stone cold. People donated a metric ton of money, and she didn't use it on the centers for people she cared for or to hire medical staff. They lived in abject poverty and were abused, tied down, soiling themselves, injected with needles that were reused, and only washed with cold water, because that's how Jesus lived, or some crap. Meanwhile, she's out there collecting the highest honors in the world and getting canonized when she dies. What miracles did she perform? Story 27. The fact that the random cruelty of reality is exactly as random as we fear it is. There's no conspiracy behind the Malaysian flight. There's no conspiracy around 9/11. These things literally just happen. And the fact conspiracy theories exist is because people's brains don't like the idea you can be snuffed out just like that and not even realize it's happening. Story 28. Vaccines aren't harmful, and the very narrative around it is the very thing they fear from vaccines. The reality is that anti-vax is propaganda that was spread by a doctor trying to sell a made-up vaccine for a made-up condition he made a bullshit study for. When he failed, he started a smear campaign that led to the anti-vax movement today. He is the very monster the people who believe his propaganda fear. Flat out, he is very greedy and disregarding children's health. Parents who listen to him fear their own doctors. This man has killed thousands of lives and still pushes it even to this day. This movement, however, has been piggybacked by snake oil salesmen calling themselves essential oil salespeople now too. These monsters are claiming to be able to cure cancer and numerous other BS, when in reality it's the very medicine slowly killing those kids in the same way they feared vaccines would do. They prey upon the weak and the vulnerable because they manipulate the real issues in the medical system to profit off of people literally dying. They are the monsters they claim the doctors to be, but you can't convince them out of it. Those families genuinely view it as saving their kids when they are actually condemning them to die, all because one man chose money over human lives. Story 29. The government's systematic attempts to destroy minority communities. Easiest one to see is the black community. From Reconstruction Jim Crow to Civil Rights era redlining to crack epidemic over policing. It's almost impressive because then public sentiment revisionist, lack of history, and historical context also does much of the heavy lifting. This country is bombing its own citizens. This country is forming a narrative that some folks hold on to history to instigate issues and holding on to victim status, which continues to hold on to the history of holding groups back, and continuing to do so while using lack of accountability culturally as the main and only argument. The gymnastics are amazing, and I used to believe them. Story 30. A projected future climate change, in large parts caused by anthropogenic CO2 emissions, is not only real, it has already become unstoppable and irreversible. The efforts we are taking now aren't to save the planet, they are to save humanity, to adapt to the new climate, and to mitigate damage to societies caused by climate change. We do not need to save the planet, and we cannot. The planet will be fine. Life will continue to exist and prosper. The only ones who are screwed if we do nothing are us, as well as a large fraction of extant species unable to adapt rapidly enough. The vast majority of harmful emissions stem from large corporations, on which ordinary people have next to no influence. Appealing to personal responsibility is almost futile, other than to get some peace of mind or moral high ground, and is also frequently used by these very corporations to offset their responsibilities onto their customers. Story 31. UFOs, UAPs. What exactly they are, we don't know. But it's a fact that they exist. Multiple governments have confirmed it and supplied super solid evidence. Congress is literally working on passing a disclosure bill as we speak. Chuck Schumer is talking about us having a right to know about non-human intelligences. It's insane. It doesn't necessarily mean aliens are real, but it's still insane. It's really weird we don't talk about it more. We all should be freaked out. But instead, it's just kind of a collective meh.